let's start with explaining for the audience who knows nothing about tariffs, what's going on with that.
Oh boy. You know nothing about it, then tariffs are taxes that the country charges on imported goods, and that um, is
Yeah.
inefficient for the economy, raises some revenue, but if you tax just blueberries rather than strawberries, then people substitute to strawberries, and it's not very efficient. Similarly, it means people will buy. Le we will do things that we're less good at, in rather than buy from foreigners things that they're better at producing.
When it comes to the tariffs that President Trump has imposed right now and the way the administration deploys tariffs, do you see it reaching the goal?
Best way to understand them is not as traditional economic policy, but as a geostrategic game. So the president puts in, hundred and something percent on tariff on China. He doesn't think that we're going to have 100% tariff on China forever. This is a negotiating gambit to get China to do something else, and then the tariffs go down. And in that sense, one can be, I'm trying to be, an economist's job is to say tariffs bad. But if you view it as a geostrategic strategy in that case, there's a case. Tariffs hurt the domestic economy. Aircraft carriers hurt the domestic economy too. They're expensive. And, if you're getting somewhere with the tariffs, that's better than blowing things up. So I think that's the best case for understanding the tariffs. But as long-run economic policy, it's hard to say it's going to do much good.
And do we see any impact of it right now?
The U.S. economy, the impact isn't that big. It's not that big because the U.S. is a very big economy and overall doesn't import that much.
Yeah.
So we can get along for quite a while. It's very impactful to foreign economies, which I think is the point. It's
Yeah.
the cartoon where the guy says this will hurt me more than it'll hurt you. Well, the point is to hurt the other economy. They're not happy about it. And then it's not obvious it's doing great geostrategic good. Yes, I think I'm quite surprised at how much other countries have done things that
Yeah.
President Trump asked them to do. It's been very surprisingly effective at getting people to do things. But it does really annoy our allies. And if we ever have to ask the rest of the world for a favor, they may not be in a great mood.
In the end of the day, as as you would say, as economists would say, the cost still falls on the consumer at home. Is that the case or not?
Yes. Now, in the short run, right now, what is happening is that people importing goods to the U.S. are not raising U.S. prices quite as much as their costs are going up. But that can't last forever. There is no pot of profit. Both left wing and right wing thinks there's some huge pot of profit that we can just force companies to pass on to consumers. Sorry, it's not how it works. When costs go up, prices go up. And I think we will see a little more pass through in the next year of tariffs into consumer costs. So prices will go up. We'll be a little bit poorer. Well, that's how sales. It's just the way any sales tax works.
And in terms of inflation, I mean the question you probably get all the time. Where do we stand when it comes to inflation in the U.S. right now? What to expect?
It's hard to forecast inflation the same way it's hard to forecast stock prices, because if we knew for sure the prices would go up next year, people would raise their prices right now. It would have
Yeah.
already happened. But with that disclaimer against trying to forecast anything, I do think the tariffs are going to work their way through. We're kind of stuck at 3% already. We do have these tariffs. Now that's a one-time price level increase. That's not sustained inflation. The Fed has said pretty much we're going to ignore one-time price level increases, which is sort of what they did during COVID. Now, us peasants with pitchfork were pretty mad about one-time price level increases, even though they aren't
Yeah.
sustained inflation. And whether the tariffs turn into inflation or not really depends on the Fed. If the imported goods go up, they have to go up relative to domestic goods. Now, that could be imported goods go up or domestic goods go down.
Yeah.
Prices could go up or wages could go down. It's the Fed that chooses that it's going to be prices that go up when prices and wages go up. They accommodate tariffs rather than let the tariffs cause a recession. But I think the Fed's going to do that. So we should, my guess is that the 3% inflation is not going away anytime soon and may even get a little bit stronger. If the Fed aggressively lowers interest rates, as the president desires, and the new Fed chair, whoever he is, seems to be likely to do. Will be a very interesting economics experiment to see how quickly lower interest rates result in higher inflation, or if they do. Conventional wisdom says that that will cause even more inflation. I'm not
Hmm.
sure conventional wisdom is right. There's a very stable doctrine that says higher interest rates will cause lower inflation, and lower interest rates will raise inflation.
Hmm.
But just how that works and how long that takes is, science is hard and
Yeah.
economic science is harder. So I think it's actually quite a bit up in the air, and
Hmm.
we'll find out. I think one thing that is quite clear is that big budget deficits with no clear plan on how they're going to get paid back, that causes inflation. Pretty
Hmm.
much no matter what the Fed does. And we saw that in 2020, 2021, a big crisis, $5 trillion of new government spending, monetized by the Fed or not. I'm not sure that made that much difference, but 25% of GDP deficit and no real plans about here we're going to pay it back. Boom, inflation. So over many, many centuries, that's been a recipe for inflation. So I
Yeah.
would worry not so much. I would worry not so much about just the regular dynamics and tariffs, but if there's another crisis, I think we
Yeah.
could play 2020, 2021 on steroids.
Hmm. I'm going to switch to another tool that we use against other countries, and that's sanctions. Have they been effective? Do they have any effect in general? Because we've seen many countries, like, for example, Iran, North Korea, remain under US sanctions and somehow manage to, albeit, yeah, without much economic development, but still survive. Yes. So, sanctions work?
Well, yeah, Cuba. We've been sanctioning Cuba since 1960.
Hmm.
Well, even extreme poverty can't dislodge determined dictators. I think that's the lesson of North Korea and Cuba. But
Hmm.
boy, are they extreme poverty. Now, that's not due to the sanctions. That's due to the economic damage they do to their own countries is far worse than what the sanctions does to
Hmm.
them. Sanctions are somewhat effective. They're better than the alternative. But as you can tell, Russia is still able to sell oil and gas, some of it to
Hmm.
Europe, and so it has not stopped them from running the war, though it's made it harder than it seems otherwise. So they are, they're partially effective, but they're not, as you noticed, they're not by themselves something that can stop a aggressor determined
Yes.
to run a war, even at great cost to his own economy.
I'm going to move towards politics now and talk about the U.S. national security strategy that we saw recently, that the Trump administration put out. We saw outrage of the European allies. What does the strategy tell us? Does it tell us anything at all? Is anything new in there?
Gosh, well, you're asking me defense strategy. I'm an economist. It didn't. It seemed like sort of uh, a sort of pastiche of economic policies. A lot of tariffs are good, and we want the workers in the U.S. to be strong, and so forth. So there's some nuance there about various priorities, but it told us Trump's a little bit less interested in his European allies than might have been thought. Um,
And one of the challenges that we see in Europe, for example, we see Trump administration demand from the allies that they spend more on defense. The challenge that European allies have is that their economic situation and their economies that require a lot of social spending not allow for dramatically raising their defense spending. Uh,
well,
are the European economies? Mm.
So Europe's problem is it's not growing, and it's not growing because it's overregulated like crazy.
Mhm.
Europe is spending typically around half of GDP, mostly on social programs. So raising defense from 2 to 3 to 5% of GDP when you've got half of GDP going on social programs. You said required. Well, that's not required. That's a choice.
Mhm.
So defense spending is really small compared to the size of modern governments. So just a little bit of taxing more efficiently, spending more efficiently, deregulating your economy so they could grow would make enormous room for defense spending. And let me add, it's not about the spending, it's what you get for the spending. It's very easy, especially in defense, to waste a lot of money on stuff that doesn't do any good. What matters
Mhm.
is demonstrated ready to go capacity. So that's not just how much money you waste on it.
Yeah, and I guess for the same money, Russia and China can buy more things than Europe could, or produce more things. But
Well,
like, but
depends how you
so
do it.
you see it as possible that European economies could actually increase their defense spending in the next 10, 15 years without having to sacrifice their models, or do they have to really shake up the way they run their economy with the welfare state and so on, or is it possible otherwise?
Well, they have to shake up their economy because they have to shake up their economy. Yeah, I mean, you can't stop growing. You killed economic growth. So you need sensible welfare
Hmm.
state policies, which is mostly about curing the incentives, not about being heartless about people. You need
Hmm.
sensible regulations so that you can get going again. And then, Russia is the size of Italy. Its GDP is the size of Italy. This is not a serious economic contest if you're serious about it. So I think Europe needs to cure its structural problems and start growing, and then the defense stuff will be easy if you want to do it.
Uh, does the United States need Europe when it comes to achieving its strategic interests or achieving deterrence in Southeast Asia, or can the United States do it alone?
We are Western civilization. We're the defenders of freedom around the planet. It would be better if we got along. Let's start with bilateral free trade. That means Europe as well as the US. Let's start with a
Mhm.
more serious alliance system, and let's start being serious about aggression in Ukraine as the first thing. I mean, Xi Jinping is watching. And if Putin gets to take Ukraine, Xi Jinping says, "Oh, that's interesting." So even if you don't directly care about Ukraine and Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, and the rest of it, we ought to not live in a world where people can just invade other countries and then wait a while and get to keep it.
Thank you very much.